In 2026, a war kicks off in the Middle East. On the surface, it looks like a conflict with Iran. But what if it's not? There's this really compelling theory that the real target is actually thousands of miles away. The big question is this Iran war actually a secret attack on China? Let's break it all down.
So this thing started with just, well, shocking speed and intensity. In the very first week, we're talking just 7 days of what the US is calling Operation Epic Fury. American and Israeli forces hit almost 2,000 different targets all across Iran. I mean, this was not some limited strike. This was an all-out blitz from the get-go.
And just look at how fast everything went sideways. The airstrikes kick off in late February. By early March, and this was a move that stunned pretty much everyone, Iran's supreme leader himself was confirmed to have been eliminated. Now the conflict's kind of settled into this very dangerous new phase, this back and forth of air and missile strikes. It's a war being fought at a distance.
Okay, so what's the official reason for all this? Let's start with the story that's being told to the public.
Well, the goals they've laid out seem pretty straightforward. They say it's about degrading Iran's nuclear program, blowing up their ballistic missile sites, taking out key leadership, and ultimately hoping to cause a full-on regime change. This is the official line you're hearing from both Washington and Jerusalem.
But this is where the whole story starts to get way more complicated. See, Iran didn't just take the hits. It fought back, and it threatened one of the most critical choke points in the entire world, the Strait of Hormuz. And the effect was instantaneous. Global shipping just slammed on the brakes, sending these massive shockwaves through the entire world economy.
And it's that disruption, that economic chaos, that leads us to a really fascinating and pretty unconventional theory. A theory that makes you ask if this whole conflict is really about what we think it's about.
Think about it. What if all this chaos, all this instability in the Middle East, what if it isn't really designed to cripple Iran? What if the real target of all this economic pain is actually China?
And that is the core idea from a strategic analyst named Aravind. The argument goes like this: if you keep the Middle East in turmoil, it basically acts like a hidden tax, like a tariff on everything China exports. Suddenly, their goods get more expensive and way harder to deliver, and you accomplish all that without ever having to fire a single shot directly at Beijing.
So, how exactly would a squeeze like that work on a superpower? Let's dig into the specific levers you'd need to pull to really apply that kind of pressure.
It seems to come down to 5 key pressure points. You've got the super important shipping lanes in the Suez and Red Sea. You've got the oil choke point at the Strait of Hormuz. Then there's pressure on other oil suppliers like Venezuela, control over the Panama Canal, and then the big one, leverage over rare earth minerals. The stuff that's in literally all of our electronics.
And this just perfectly illustrates the pain, right? When the Suez route gets too risky, those massive container ships full of Chinese goods have to go all the way around Africa. We're talking about adding up to 2 weeks to their journey, and it jacks up the cost by as much as 50%. That is a gigantic blow to China's whole export-based economy.
And it's not just about what China sells, it's also about what it buys. Take a look at its energy. With Iran making threats in the Strait of Hormuz, roughly half of all the crude oil China gets from the Gulf is suddenly in jeopardy. That creates a huge amount of uncertainty and, of course, drives up prices for the biggest oil importer on the planet.
So here's the kicker. It's all about the timing. Proponents of this theory say this whole economic squeeze is designed to force Beijing's hand right now. The goal? To get a much better deal on trade and, crucially, on China's near monopoly of those rare earth minerals. And it's all supposed to happen just before a huge US-China summit that's planned for April. It is geopolitical hardball, plain and simple.
But, and this is a huge but, let's be absolutely clear. If this is the strategy, it is an unbelievably high-risk gamble. The potential for this thing to just blow up in everyone's faces is, well, it's enormous.
And you can see just how dangerous it is. First, you risk ticking off major allies like the EU and India, who are also getting hammered by this. Then, what if China decides to fight back? They could dump US debt and try to crash Western markets. At home in the US, this just fuels inflation and hurts consumers at the pump. And, maybe the most terrifying risk of all, these things have a nasty habit of spiraling completely out of anyone's control.
Which brings us to today, to where things stand right now, in the middle of what really might be a brand new playbook for how wars are fought in the 21st century.
So here's the takeaway. We're stuck in a stalemate, an air war with massive global consequences, but no boots on the ground. The markets are on edge, oil prices are all over the place, and honestly, the whole world is just holding its breath, trying to figure out what the real endgame is here. Is it about stopping Iran, checkmating China, or maybe it's both?
At the end of the day, this conflict has become something much, much bigger than just a regional war. It's turned into a geopolitical tool, a lever that's being used to literally reshape the basic flows of the global economy, from trade routes to energy to the minerals that are going to power our entire future.
And that leaves us with one last big, provocative question to think about. In this new century, where economies are the real battlegrounds, is control over a shipping lane actually more powerful than an aircraft carrier? It's a question that really gets to the heart of the incredibly complex world we're all trying to navigate now.